latest 7 cards from, I don't know, the Ancients Rising set, I guess. So, for a limited time only, thankfully, you're going to see a lot of these in draft. So, the way they're doing this is they're replacing the small pack that you normally put into the draft pool with a novelty pack, which is just these. Unfortunately, it also respects rarities. So expect to see a lot of spiders and a lot of Proto Prisms. Like, a lot. Like, a lot. Like, you can draft probably 10 of each if you wanted to. Which kind of sucks, because it means the other cards appear less often, and the Proto Prism is kind of boring. Spider is alright. But, thankfully, next month when they roll out the next batch of cards, you know, that pool will get wider, so it won't feel as bad. But still, I just kind of don't like the idea. So for a little bit, draft, I think, is going to be a little worse until the situation improves. And then once we get, you know, the batch after that, once there's like maybe 20 cards in that pool or 25 cards in that pool, it should be better. But still, the fact that you can see the same cards over and over again means if those cards are particularly good, they're going to be in every draft deck. And man, I have seen a lot of spiders in draft. A lot of spiders. Like way too many spiders. So many spiders. Anyways, so we'll look over these cards. I'll give them the draft rating that I have with, after a couple of drafts experiencing them, and then, you know, a few comments on ranked. Of course, keep in mind, I am not the best authority on ranked. Take that with a grain of salt. I'm sure, you know, guys from the Shrining will come up with some ridiculous ways to abuse these cards. Kick it off with Kamsian, the Realm Guardian. I created a name, and I'm sticking with it. So, the first introduction to the passive hero abilities. Very interesting, the fact that you have no hero power, but you get passive abilities instead. I don't know if they're going to add more of these. I certainly would be interested in seeing. As an introduction, it has some interesting mechanics, you know, with a higher life total, 25, that's kind of cool, and an extra card, but then you start losing life if you play non-ancient spells. We don't know what ancient spells are going to be yet. And the fact that you don't have a hero power, so you front load all of your advantages quickly, but then you start losing. So, as far as draft is concerned, I think this hero is terrible, because in draft, the hero power is very valuable. Think of something like Burke. When you think of it this way, Kamsian gives you an extra card, but when you have a hero power, that's like having a card in hand with that effect, essentially. So Coronis essentially has a Raven in his hand, but then he gets to redraw it every other turn. So the card advantage is actually not as good as it seems. The extra life also doesn't matter that much in draft. So, and not to mention, you are going to want to play spells because removal is pretty important. So it's not even 5 extra life. So overall, in almost every case, I could think of a better hero for any deck. You want to use a hero power. You really do. I cannot imagine this being any good in draft. I really can't. As for constructed, I think there may be a narrow niche. I played around a little bit with demons. I think demons could use it because the extra card means higher chance of getting portal, and the extra life means portal hurts you less. Pretty good. So, might work there. I think with any variant of demons. You might have to run less spells, but that's fine. Other than that, I can only think maybe some kind of aggressive decks where you always want to play cards from hand because they're better than your hero power, and then having an extra card means you give a little bit more fuel, and that's kind of nice. But in any case, I don't expect this hero to be like leading the meta in any way, and that's a good thing because it's colorless. So you don't want this to be like too good, because then other heroes would just be bad. But anyways, as far as draft is concerned, I'm awarding this 1 star because I'm thinking you always have a better hero than this one. And for constructed, try it out. Alright, let's get to the actual cards. Proto Prism. So, the basic idea is that it's a 0 mana redraw. You just play it and then you activate it and then you get a discount and a card draw. So, it can thin your deck, which by itself isn't that exciting, but the more interesting aspect of this card is the ability to store up mana. So, let's go through the draft first. In draft, I've given this 3 stars. The redraw is cool. It doesn't do anything great, but it's not bad. It's a good filler card. Just throw it in your deck if you don't have anything better to do, and That's totally fine. Like, if you have to put 3 or 4 of them, your deck doesn't get any worse. Keep in mind, though, that your deck is essentially that much smaller. For every Proto Prism in your deck is essentially smaller by that much. And if you have 8 of them in your deck, you're going to run through cards really fast. Just keep that in mind. The mana storing, I haven't been able to make any use of it, or I haven't even seen anyone make any good use of it, so I wouldn't really bother. And in Constructed, though, maybe you can. You play it on turn 2, and then you can play a 4-drop immediately after. There could be some application for that, for some quick ramping, but considering that we have New Horizons and Power Surge, this just seems like a bit of an overkill. And the fact that it's primary doesn't help. I mean, you could, like I said, you could just put like 20 of these into your deck if you want to, like, thin for something specific, you know, draw very specific cards. Now, you do have to play with creatures, so you can't just, you have to have creatures to activate Proto Prisms. Although I wonder if there's some combo where you go Proto Prism turn 1, double Proto Prism turn 2, and then some bullshit turn 3 or 4 where you play like 6 mana worth of creatures. I don't really know. Maybe you can, and it'd be cool to see. See if the Shrining Boys come with something really ridiculous. And if so, hey, that's kind of cool. Although, again, 0 mana redraws are kind of amusing. Bonus points for synergy. Somewhat synergy with the Unstable Reactor, where you can just populate your board with artifacts very easily. And then, well, the reactor can go off immediately. By the way, I did get to see the previous versions of these cards, so these are all different than what they started out as. And Proto Prism was absolute trash in the beginning. It was a creature with a really weird effect, where you could, it was a 1 mana 1/1, where you could pay a mana to draw a card. But then it was like a 2 mana 1/1 draw card. That's not very good. It didn't do anything. This version is a lot cooler though, so good job devs on fixing that. Elvis Champion might just be the new champion of draft. She certainly made a really good showing. Being rare though, you don't see her as much, which is probably a good thing, because otherwise you might just start overrunning everything. 4 stars for me for draft. The stat line is not even that bad without the effects. It's kind of like a slightly worse Vanguard. If you get either of the effects, it's pretty nice. If you get both, it's insane. But you can't force that situation. It's both a win more and a catch-up card at the same time, which is kind of good. But I can't quite give it 5 stars because it's not universally good like Fireball. But it could be like 4.5 stars. It's a really solid card. And in Constructed, I could certainly see a future for this card. I mean, maybe Bears will throw this in, where you start throwing out a bunch of cards, they drop this, and it's Swift. And if you're up against aggro, dropping a 3/4 for 2 mana, man, that's really good. That's like a super duper Vanguard. So yeah, I'm pretty sure this will see play in some way or another. We'll have to see what, but good card in draft for sure. But once the novelty pack starts getting diluted, you'll see less of them. But that's fine. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering what the pre-version was, it was 4 creatures instead of 3, and we thought that was a bit much, where it just didn't trigger nearly enough. It basically had no effect. With 3, it's cool. The Boar Rider. So originally a 3/3, they bumped it up to a 3/4. So, it's interesting. A 3 mana 3/4 is like the Ghoul for Corruption, and Ghoul is a solid card. So I'm going to give this the same rating as Ghoul, which is 4 stars. It can always attack, which is good, but it can't always attack. You know, it has to attack a creature with an emblem. Now, it can still go face, and it can still block. So that's fine. It can't attack creatures that don't have an emblem. It doesn't have to be the target emblem. It can be any emblem, including Might emblems. Does this make the target emblem deck good? Probably not. But by itself, it's good. I mean, because it's uncommon, you could pick up a couple of these in draft, and it's just solid. Great 3-drop. And if you have those and Flame Rune Warriors, putting out target emblems shouldn't be very hard. And it's kind of hard to crack a creature like this on turn 3. So yeah, should be good. And if playing Rage, you pick up like 4 of these, yeah, that's could be pretty good. I actually wasn't able to do it. I had one draft where I found like 4 of them. I could not get any Rage cards. So I don't know if they weren't being offered or if just everybody was drafting Rage. But hey, we'll see in the future. And in Constructed, I think Rage Rush might run this. I mean, as a 3-drop, pretty good. And it could always just go face anyways. Should be good there. Superiority. Oh my god. So, I don't even want to get into what this card's original effect was. But without being too unkind, it was fucking terrible. That's all you need to know. And I don't mean that it was bad. I mean it was a horrifically toxic design. and it took the guys very little time to find ways to break it. And you don't even want to know what it is. We're not even going to go there. So the card itself is complete trash for draft. Let's get that out of the way. Because it's... when you play this, you are doing nothing. So your opponent will probably be able to get ahead in life and get ahead in creatures on the board. So first of all, for this to be good, how many of the 3 things have to trigger? It's checking for most cards in hand, most creatures on the board, and most life. Since it has the same cost as Ancient Wisdom, you have to get at least 2 triggers, right? Then it's an Ancient Wisdom that also heals you for 4. That's pretty good. If you get all 3, that's insane. But if you only get 1, not so good. So, okay, how often can you get 3? Well, if you're ahead on creatures and life and cards in hand, in other words, you're completely winning the game. So it's like a super win more card, which is not good generally. Okay, so rarely. And when it does happen, you're already winning anyways. What about 2? Which ones can you get realistically? Since you do get life, for instance, when it triggers. So since the life trigger is last, if the first trigger gives you the life, you might get the second trigger for life. So if you start the turn and you have the most cards, then and not less than like 2 life, then you might get the second trigger, right? My main problem with this card is, when do you play this? I mean, do you play this on turn 3? If you play this on turn 3, you are not going to get the creature one, and you probably won't get the life one because your opponent's creatures will hit your face. So you'll redraw and gain 2 life, which I guess is alright, but doesn't seem that good. I'm just trying to picture, when are you ever going to get 2 triggers with this? And why not just run Ancient Wisdom? I mean, if you're playing a Dominion deck and if you're playing aggressively, you wouldn't run a card like this anyways, because it's just do nothing, basically, for 2 mana. And as a control deck, why not just run Ancient Wisdom, right? Unless you're not running Wisdom at all and you're looking for some card draw, but this is kind of conditional card draw. And yeah, no, getting the life is very good too, but you know, getting the most cards in hand shouldn't be that hard, actually. Because if your opponent's playing creatures and you're not, well then, you'll probably get that trigger. But getting the life trigger as well, I think would be hard. Because getting the creatures trigger is going to be almost impossible, I think. If you're playing a control deck, you're never going to have more creatures than your opponent. Unless they're playing a control deck. But then you would have to have played a creature ahead of time. And then you play this, and it doesn't immediately go off. So your opponent could then assess the board and decide, okay, well, I could play a creature to get ahead, or I could, you know, hit him in the face and prevent him from getting more than 1 trigger. So it seems, what I'm saying is, it seems kind of bad. And I wonder if it would be better if it just triggered immediately. Instead of being a blessing, just activate immediately. Because, you know, when you play it, you go down a card anyways, so you have to have been ahead cards. Not even ahead in cards before even playing this, and actually ahead by 2 cards. Since if you're up 1 card and you play this, well then you're not ahead in cards. And then you can forget about being ahead on creatures probably, and then hopefully have the most life. Then it'll be an Ancient Wisdom that gains you 4 life. Sometimes? I don't know. My bet is on this card sucking. If I'm proved wrong, it'll be another seems fair moment probably. I would certainly like to do a reviewing the Fuzz on these, but I probably won't do it until like another rotation comes in, like once we have like 20 or 30 of these cards, and we have gotten a good feel for them. That'll be a pretty good time. So yeah, in draft, absolute trash. Don't even try this, since you can't really play a control deck, and this wouldn't even help you in anyways. And in constructed, I'm struggling to see how to use this, but I'm not the greatest deck builder, so maybe there is some way, but I'm a little bit skeptical. Swarming Spider. This is probably the poster boy for this expansion. What a fun card. So, yeah, lots of spiders. Introduces the play boost mechanic, which, by the way, I think is one of the greatest ideas that Spellweaver has had. The reason play boost is so important is because it allows the developers to make really big and powerful creatures without the risk of them being abused with reanimate, because you have to play it from hand. Whereas previously they were always restricted. Like Bezarok is like on the border of how big they can make it, because you can make a card that has 5 aspect requirements and costs 6 mana and is insane, but who cares because it just gets reanimated. But with Play Boost, you don't get any benefit if you don't play it from hand. So that, I think, is how they're going to want to design really powerful creatures in the future, with some, maybe like an average stat line, but a really powerful Play Boost. Let's say Play Boost, if you have 4 aspects when you play it, it gets +2/+2 or something. It opens up a lot of very interesting design, and I certainly hope they push the crap out of this mechanic. I think it's great. The keyword itself, I'm not crazy about, Play Boost, but whatever. Maybe they'll come up with something better, but it's not that important. At the very least, capitalize the B on Boost. But anyways, quick on how it works. You are given the option to pick any or all of these if you can pay the cost. So with the spider, you can pay the 2 life and it'll be deadly. That's pretty cool. You can then also pay 2 mana to get a second spider, but you don't have to. So you don't have to do these in order. You can do them, you can pick any of these in any combination that you want. Now, the third ability is kind of weird, where it relies on you having other spiders. This is the only spider in the game right now. I don't know if there'll be more. If there were, then obviously this gets a lot better. Like, even if there were token spiders, which probably is the most likely way they'd introduce them. So how good is this card? For draft, it's a 4-star for me. It's not that it's insanely powerful. It's that it's decent, both in the early game, in the middle game, and in the late game. So if you play it on turn 2 and you make it deadly, that's pretty alright. A 2/2 with deadly, yeah, you have to pay 2 life, but you don't have to make it deadly. But if you do make it deadly, it's a solid 2-drop, right? It's a pretty reasonable 2-drop. But you can also pay 4 mana and get 2 spiders. Or something like Rotting Remains can't do that. Something like Vanguard can't quite do that. And if you want to go all the way, you can actually get a deadly spider with some buffs on it. So if you already played a swarming spider and you have 2 spiders on the board, and you pay the last ability, you'll get a 4/4 spider. The effect gives might emblems to the spider that you play. So if you have 2 spiders on the board and you play another swarming spider, it'll be a 4/4. You do not get to count the benefit from the spider you summon with the spider that you're playing. So if you have no spiders and you play swarming spider, the last ability does nothing. So that's kind of a bummer, because it means unless you're making a spider deck, the last ability is terrible. Like, it's just useless most of the time. But honestly, even without that ability, it's still kind of alright and still decent in draft. Now, like I said, you're going to see a lot of these because it's common and you're seeing a novelty pack in every pick. So you're going to see a spider almost every time you pick. You could easily draft like 10 of these. And that could be good, actually. Again, the flexibility means it's never bad. And it has more options than other cards. And that's why I give it 4 stars, because I think it's pretty cool. And I like cards like these. Cards that are flexible, that can be played in various ways. So, Mr. Spider, welcome aboard. By the way, bonus points. There is a different art depending on what you do with the spider. If you make it deadly, it has a green glow around it, and that's awesome. And if you play it with the buff, and it's sufficiently big, I think it's 5/5, the art is of a bigger, thicker spider. So that's pretty awesome. Mr. Alexander Nanichkov, thanks for making multiple arts for this card. That takes effort and dedication. Great job. Really cool card. And constructed, I mean, if you're going to play this, you're going to probably try to make a spider deck, which could work, depending on how you're going to try it. I'm not sure what other cards you'd run, but you could just make most of your creatures be swarming spider, right? It's a good 2-drop. You can play it pretty much any time of the game. And just back it up with spells or whatever, with tombs, stuff like that. It can be pretty strong late game card. I mean, it gets, the name swarming implies that it gets better and better, and it does. And I mean, and I've seen some people make like 9/9 spiders with this, which is pretty ridiculous. But hey, pretty good. I expect to see some spiders in constructed too. We're gonna get it overrun with spiders. And lastly, the Angelic Animation. It's another multicolor card. It's a Order Corruption card. So it's the first multicolor card that's not either all good or all bad. It mixes the two. So let's get the obvious out of the way. As far as draft goes, I'll give it 4 stars for the same reason that I gave it to the Spider, where it's pretty decent no matter how you play it. If you just play it with no buffs, it's a flying Sunblessed Priest. That's not at all bad, actually. That's, in fact, pretty good. But if you also give it a Enchained Soul, you get 2 flyers, one of which is 3 speed for 3 mana. Pretty fair. And if you got a spare mana, he even gets a shield. So yeah, on 4 mana, again, it's not insane, but it's decent. On 3 mana, whichever way you play it, it's decent. On 2 mana, it's decent. It's flexible. It's good as like a 3-drop or as a 5-drop. Just like the Spider. Maybe a little bit less powerful because it doesn't have the 3rd ability. But it's good. And it's solid. And because you see a lot of them, because it's uncommon, it gives you more reason to go for that Order Corruption deck. In fact, you could just make a Spider Angel deck in draft. Go for it. You pick every Angel that you see and pick every Spider that you see. Prioritizing the Angels because they're less common. And it'll probably work out. But otherwise, I don't care much for Order and Corruption. The only really thing they have going is the Soldier theme. But hey, it's cool. In Constructed, the main appeal of this card is going to be the fact that it's an Angel. So maybe Angelica decks are going to try to do something with it. Now, it is a Spirit, so you can't instill it. Obviously, being able to instill 2 Angels would probably be a little too good. But, yeah, a very cheap Angel is certainly a good thing for those kinds of decks. Now we have something like 20 Angels total. You can put 20 Angels into your deck, and that's not even counting the Temples. But I think the Temples might not work out very well. So, yeah, that's all there is to say about this card. We'll see if Angels make a comeback. Other than that, I don't think it'll actually be played in Constructed. I think it's less good than the Spider. It doesn't synergize with itself, and it doesn't really give you much of a reason to go Order Corruption, whereas with the Spider, you just need Corruption. That's that. A good start. There's some interesting cards. I can't wait to see what the next batch looks like. Well, I'm sure we'll get to, with the balance team, we'll get to mess around with them a little bit, but I think we're off to a good start. I kind of like this idea of smaller expansions. It makes them easier to kind of dissolve across the meta, and it gives us something exciting to look forward to every month, which is great. Every month, a couple more cards, 5 more cards, 10 more cards, whatever it is. And that way you can avoid the problem of adding 150 cards and then like half of them are trash or a bunch of them are bugged. Because I mean, when the first expansion came out, it was kind of a mess. So I think this is the right approach for the game, and I'm looking forward to seeing the next batch. And of course, looking forward to any seems fair moments I might have from reviewing these cards and see how many I get horribly wrong. Hopefully a lot. It'll be good for a laugh. I'll see you guys next time.